Here to announce the results of a 5-day operation we conducted last week called Operation Watchdog that focused on registered sex offenders and predators, those traveling to procure sex from a minor, as well as those in possession of child pornography. During the course of this investigation, 38 individuals were arrested by face-to-face contact with offenders, online sting operations, as well as online investigations establishing downloading and the sharing of child pornography investigations. We had the agencies participating in this operation are the U.S. Marshals Service, Homeland Security Investigations, Panama City Police Department, the Lynn Haven Police Department, the Panama City Beach Police Department, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and our State Attorney's Office. And this is just has been a great operation to take those that would seek to prey on the most vulnerable in our community, our children, to take them off the streets and to hold them accountable. So the operation basically consisted of 3 phases. The first was an online operation looking at those that would attempt to try to contact and communicate with minors on social media and other online platforms for the purposes of meeting them for sexual activity. We were able to arrest 6 of those individuals in this operation. We call those traveler operations because once the way we work those is once we have an agreement to meet somewhere, then a takedown team is there, and when they meet and show follow through on what they've said on these chats is when we arrest those. Again, 6 of those individuals were arrested. Of note, and those 2, one was already a registered sex offender for that same charge, and one we did have a employee of Bay County EMS that was also arrested in that particular phase of the operation. The other phases of the operation were looking at our registered sex offenders and predators, one to make sure that they were at their registered address. But there's also a provision in the statute for registered sex offenders and predators that they have to register all of their vehicles and their social media accounts. And that becomes pertinent in investigations when we have minors that are possibly contacted by a sex offender. Then we have that resource to show that what their social media accounts, their email accounts, their telephone numbers, and things like that. We arrested 29 during that portion of the operation and 3 for possession of child pornography. I just want to thank all the men and women that are back here that participated in this operation. Y'all have got my respect. Y'all see things that on behalf of the public to take this element out of our communities, and I just want to thank you for that. And y'all did an excellent job on this operation. These can be dangerous. Several of the offenders had firearms with them, but the operation was concluded without any incidents. So I just want to thank those that are involved with the operation for the way that they conducted this and for getting these very dangerous individuals off the streets. Come in Lieutenant Mathis with our Criminal Investigation Division for organizing this effort, and it is part of our involvement in the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. And most of these operations, I think there may be a couple that are federal prosecutions, but our state attorney's office will be prosecuting most of these cases. We've got a great relationship with them, and they do a great job in holding these people accountable. So all of these, we've got our representatives from our agencies that participate. Anybody want to come up? And we've got Chief Ramey, we've got U.S. Marshal Don Ladner, we've got Chief Scott Urban, Deputy Chief Chad Lindsay, and our state attorney Larry Bassford. But again, a successful operation in taking these individuals off the street that would intend on harming the children in our community. And with that, I'll answer any questions that you may have.
So I think you might have stated this, but were any of the offenders previously busted for child pornography before of this?
Well, a lot of them, again, 29 of them were already sex offenders, so they had been arrested and convicted of some type of sex offense, which could have been anything from child pornography to lewd and lascivious to sexual battery. There was one that was previously arrested for traveling to meet a minor for sexual activity. So again, arrested for that, convicted of that, and still doing it again. That was, Jeremy, help me with that name. It was Sasha Brown.
So then how do you go forward and make sure it doesn't happen again? You just said 29 or 28 people have already been convicted for these charges. How do you prevent it from happening even more?
Well, by continuing to do these type of operations, again, we have, I think, probably 400 sex offenders in our area, and we regularly, deputies and investigators go out and verify those addresses where they're living and make contact with them. And our crime prevention deputies that are out in the communities, they primarily do that, so they'll know if an offense happens or where our sex offenders are living here locally. So, but I think the way we prevent that is to stay on top of doing operations like these.
And you said, it said in the press release that this was a week-long investigation. This all happened within a week, or was it a longer period of time that we were?
It all happened within a week. We had probably at any given time maybe 25 investigators from the various agencies that are represented they actually used this room as where they were set up to do the undercover chats with the offenders. And then we had teams that were out in the field making those sex offender verifications, and then takedown teams that for when a traveler would show up at a particular location, we would take them into custody. So it was a very intense operation, began last Monday night. Most of this occurred at night, Monday night through Friday night.
And now all the social media platforms that were used are listed on the press release, correct? But are there any missing?
No, those are, we see this happening across all types of platforms.
So do you have to shut down these social media platforms that they use after, do you shut them down, or are they still allowed to be like active social medias?
Well, that would be a matter up to the courts to restrict their use of those. We certainly, they will be booked into jail, and the court could provide certain provisions about whether or not they could be on certain platforms.
I'm not sure if you're able to go into too much detail about this, but can you kind of expand on how it worked with the platforms? Were the deputies chatting with them? Kind of what was the process?
Well, I don't want to get into too many investigative techniques that we use, but the basic premise is that, yes, an investigator is posing as an underage child and engaging in conversation, usually initiated by these individuals. We have certain rules that we go by to avoid entrapment and things like that. And then to be honest, the conversations quickly take a very dark turn towards, and with them knowing that this is a minor very early in the conversation, the undercover officer will somehow indicate that they are underage, and these individuals continue with these very dark sexual conversations, and then in most cases agree to meet with the thought that they are meeting with a child, and that's when we're waiting for them.
Sheriff Ford, can you expand maybe a little bit on parents maybe really watching their kids, especially during this time, because they're online more than ever now because of this pandemic?
Absolutely. It is absolutely critical that parents monitor their kids' online activities and behaviors. I like to say to parents that there's no Fourth Amendment in your home. So parents, have the right to search their kids' phone and monitor their activities for their involvement on these different platforms. And again, these are, it's not just one platform that we're talking about that's focused on with this. It is numerous platforms. Really, any way that one person can communicate with another online. Now, there's some that are preferred due to the fact that the perpetrator feels like they maintain some sense of anonymity. But there are some great programs out there that help parents with learning about how to monitor this kind of stuff. We've got Lieutenant Talamentes from the beach is here, and he's done a great job of putting a program together that talks directly to parents and what their role and responsibility is in making sure that that their kids are safe when they're online. That's a good point, though.
And now some of these people on this list are well-known people in the community that spend time around children.
Mhm.
Wouldn't have necessarily expected that. What do you have to say speaking on to that, to kids, to parents? These people spend time at Little League sports.
Yeah, absolutely. That's not uncommon for us to see that. I mean, certainly many, and the vast majority of people that are involved in coaching sports and church groups and school functions and things like that, the vast majority are great people that are doing it for the right reasons. But we have seen in the past where people that have an affinity for this kind of thing, do place themselves in positions to where they have access to kids. So again, just like with the online monitoring, it's important to really always know where your kids are and what they're doing and who they're doing it with. And it's all right to ask those questions.
And now what comes next for them?
So the prosecution of these cases, most of these cases are very serious felony offenses that typically result in prison time. Most of them are second-degree felonies when you're talking about traveling to meet a minor for sexual activity or possession of child pornography, and again, violation of those sex offender restrictions. It's important to note that the sex offenders and the predators, they've already been convicted of sexual offenses, and so these are additional offenses. So as they reoffend, the penalties for that increase.
And do you expect there to be more charges against these 38 people?
Anytime we have an operation like this, there is continuing investigation and follow-up. There'll be, on some of them, there'll be review of electronic devices that were seized, and we may very well see additional counts of possession of child pornography, or maybe even the identification of additional victims in these cases. And that's always what we're looking at, is trying to further these investigations. So we very well could see additional arrests from this. And these will be operations that we continue to do, because there's nothing more important than keeping our kids safe. All right, guys, y'all have anything?
Anyone else wanna ask about it?
All right, thank you.
Great, thank you.